Before you can consistently drive at the limit, you really need to know the Toge well. That doesn't just mean knowing which direction each corner goes, although that is a part of it. What it really involves is knowing every last detail about the road, from its surface, the turn radii of corners, road camber, elevation changes, and the length of straights. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how you can learn a Toge in the easiest way possible, so make sure you stay tuned. The very first thing I'm going to do is take a look at the map of the Toge. You can do this in Content Manager, or simply click those three little dots, go down to Folder, and open the map PNG that way. What I'm going to be doing from here is really just taking in the ebbs and flow of the Toge. I can see that it has a lot of hairpins, so I'll be prepared for this when I drive it. Another observation is that there aren't many straightaways, so again, I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind for when we actually drive it, and I won't be coming out of the hairpins at full throttle until I know the layout. Up next, we're going to load into the Toge and take a slow drive around it. We're not going to push it at all, as this is just a recce run. We're going to absorb as much information about the road as possible. Again, we're going to get a general feel of the Toge. Does it flow well? Are the corners dangerous or easy? What would the racing line look like? How far can we see out the road? Is there any debris on the side of the road? On our first run, we really need to take all of this in, as well as getting a decent feel for the flow of the road. Learning a Toge efficiently is definitely a skill, so don't worry if you're not sure what to look out for right away. But once you do it enough, you'll know exactly what to look out for, and would even be able to drive a Toge for the first time at a decent pace. By the time our first run is complete, we'll have a semi-decent understanding of the road, and we should be able to push it a little harder the second time. But before we get on to the next 4 steps on how to learn a Toge, I need to remind you to like the video, let me know what you think in the comments, and drop a subscribe if you end up enjoying the video. Thank you. For our second run, in which we're going to be driving just a little bit faster, I have a piece of advice for you. We should drive all corners with a late apex at first. This will allow us a little extra room on the exit if we find the corner is much tighter than we originally thought. We can start to move the apex earlier and earlier once we have really learned the road and start pushing for time. On this second run, we'll want to look out for the more technical stuff, such as bank turns. They are one of the most critical factors we need to consider on a Toge. A corner's banking or camber is an important factor in the speed we can take through it. You really need to take the corner's banking into account. Look at what the road is doing as you drive over it. When driving a positively banked corner, try to get into the banking as soon as possible and stay in it for as long as possible. With off-cambered corners, set up so that you are in the off-camber section for as short a time as possible. The banking may also vary from the top of the Toge to the bottom, so make sure you look at the road surface closely. The Toge I'm using, the Gao, is comprised almost entirely of these banked corners, but luckily they are mostly positively cambered, meaning we can use them to our advantage. We also need to keep an eye out for the uphill and downhill sections. Most Toges are either only one or the other, but sometimes you can be surprised with both in a single run. They will have a massive effect on the traction limit of the car. We'll want to use these elevation changes to our advantage and minimise their disadvantages. Just remember, a car going uphill has better traction than one going downhill. You'll need to complete these recon runs a few times, enough times necessary for you to get a good understanding of the road. Learning a Toge means building a mental image of the entire road, from every corner and width of each stretch of road, to smaller things such as bumps in the road or a change in the road surface. The bigger your database of reference points, the better you have learned the Toge. So the more information you gather before pushing it to the limit, the better. There's no shame in doing 10 slow runs, so long as you feel comfortable. Once you have a solid understanding of the Toge, it's time to start pushing it closer and closer to the limit. It's at this point you'll have 2 hurdles to jump over before you can consistently drive fast on the Toge. Firstly, discovering and perfecting the racing line. Secondly, driving the car at its limit. It's way easier to learn a Toge in that order. The correct line first, then driving at its speed. When we first learn the ideal line, it's important to use all of the road surface, even if we aren't driving fast enough to warrant it. will force the car to the edge of the road if necessary. It's pretty simple to use all of the road surface at the entrance to a corner. But at the apex, you'll need to be right beside the edge of the road, and then at the exit, drive the car to within a couple of inches of the edge. But remember, we're still driving relatively slowly at this point. We just want to get a good feel for the racing line. It's important when you first learn a Toge to force yourself to use every single inch of it and to make it a habit. Before we move on to the next part of learning a Toge, driving the ideal line must be a habit. Or you're in for a bad time when you start to drive fast. Once you know the racing line, you can begin working on speed. The key here is to sense the amount of traction you have. With each run, begin accelerating a little earlier out of each corner and feel how much traction the car has left. Keep pushing acceleration earlier and earlier until you can feel the car on its limit of traction. Or in other words, begins to oversteer or understeer excessively. Remember, the car must be sliding somewhat or you're not at the limit. Once you feel like you are getting closer to the limit in terms of acceleration, you can then begin working on your cornering. You should carry a little more speed into each corner with every run, until you can't make the car turn in towards the apex the way you would like, or, again, until it begins understeering or oversteering excessively. Once you find the ideal amount of speed to carry into a corner, you can then start to look for markers for your braking points. For example, on this corner I know I need to start braking around here, and that is right next to this object. So, from now on, when I approach this corner, I'm going to get on the brakes once I reach this point. After you've completed all of these steps, you should be able to set some pretty fast times. But feel free to evaluate and alter your techniques if required. You could try accelerating more progressively or more abruptly. You could try trail braking more or less, taking a slightly different line, or turning in more crisply or sharply. Whatever it takes to accelerate earlier and carry more speed into corners. Let's recap the strategy for learning a new Toge. Step 1. Recon runs. Get a good feel for the road. Step 2. At a slightly lower speed, drive the ideal line until it becomes habit. Step 3. Corner exit acceleration. Progressively begin accelerating earlier and earlier until you sense the traction limit. Step 4. Corner entry speed. Begin carrying more and more speed into the turn until you sense the traction limit. Step 5. Evaluate and alter your technique if required. Step 6. Make sure you like the video if you found it helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments and subscribe for more videos just like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.